one of the things, there are several things that were changed with the 2022 version that came out last November. And there's the import page and edit page and export page up at the top. And were some major color changes and a whole bunch of things that shifted. And I'm going to just take a quick look at a couple of the things that changed here, shifting over to Premiere. Up here at the upper left corner, you notice where my cursor is wiggling, there is import, edit, and export. And that's for setting up for a new project. And it looks like you have to use this to import media, but you don't have to use this to import media. If you're doing a file new project and you get this window, I'm just going to untitle and bring it up here. You can just start up like this, and it will start up like I'm in a productions thing. So it started up another project in productions. But you can also, if I closed my production and did this, then I would get a screen very similar to this, except it would give me an option to put a location over here. And so you put your name of your project right up here on the left where it says Neil Shoots Art. Now that's just a file folder thing, but it gives you this other line, and you can say your name for your project and then a location. But everyone thought we have to use this for importing. And if you use this screen for importing your media, all you get is a single big project file that has everything, including all subfolders in this imported. For some things, it can be really handy. Like I was told that if you're a news person, typically they'll send a videographer out and the person with the microphone, right? They'll go out and they'll do 6 things, and they'll come back, and each little project they shoot will be in a different folder. And they'll have someone back at the station that is grabbing a talking head clip that looks like it might work with that story and puts it into the same folder. And someone needs to sit down and very quickly look through what they've got, make a short timeline. Maybe they need a 2-minute timeline, a 1-minute timeline, and a 30-second timeline from the same thing. They're going to go into just one folder that has only a few things and make a project, get it edited, and out real quick. Well, this screen works actually very well for that process. For most of us that work a lot more complicated projects, this is not the way we want to work, because we want to be able to set it up into more sequences. And for that, you can use the thing at the top that I'm not seeing now because I'm in production mode, but where you have right up over here on this side, you would upper left, you have a place to put the name, and then you select the location. And then where it says import down here, if you're setting up a new project that way, it will say create. And so you do up here in the far upper left, you do your name, and then you select a location on disk, and then you have to scroll all the way heckin' gone down here to where it's now saying import, but it will say create, and you can create your project. And then once you've done that, you're back at a screen more like this, where you have this thing, import media to start here in my upper left corner, and you can import by right-clicking import, or which brings up Windows dialog, or you can go to the media browser panel and do your import. So you can skip the whole freaking thing, which is handy a lot of times. But one of the bigger problems we've had, though, is with color. Now let's take a look at this image that I've got here. Coming over here to the right side to the scopes, to the vector scopes. Well, hopefully you can see that the color here in the vector scope is right out to this line, that kind of hexagonal line that goes around the edge of this. This is very heavily saturated. And also we can see, because we've got these white lights up above the 100 scale on both this is waveform and YC no chroma, and also the RGB parade, that we've got these lines up above the scale. We have data that is clipped. In other words, it's gone. It's way too bright, and it is being left out. And we've also got a little bit of data below zero that's getting crushed, as it's called. It's not showing. Well, I'm going to temporarily come over to the bottom right corner and hit the HDR scale so I can see data is, if I was looking at it in HDR, data going 100 IRE is the data limit for SDR for Rec 709 standard media video like we've done. we've got data clear up to 1K, 1,000 nits or 1,000 IRE, which is way into HDR category. If you have a clip that has this kind of data well outside, a lot of people have tried to just go into the color corrections and darken it down, which you can do, but it will not export correctly. It will export blown out like this. Instead, go to that media in the bin, right click on it, modify, interpret footage, and they have color management controls that appeared for the first time in Premiere 2022. You have to come down here. Now, right now, it says use media color space from file, Sony S-Log3, S-Gamut 3 Cine. This is one of their few codecs that is actually color managed technically right now, but it's still interpreting it wrong. It's still showing it as an HDR clip on my SDR timeline. So I need to use the color space override and then click on here and choose the Rec 709 and then OK. And now notice all of a sudden the data is down below 100 over here on the side. And so I can come over here and go back to my 10-bit scopes, and I am not crushing anything. There's no blacks that are too dark or too black. You notice we've got all of this area up in here, the clouds. We can see the whole image now. Again, to correct the file color space, you right click on one or more. You can do this to a whole group of images, but you can select a bunch of them and right click and change them all together. But right click, modify, interpret footage. If you're getting this blown out look, use the color space override to Rec 709.
That's a really valuable piece of information I think you just gave us.
That has been a huge hassle. One of the reasons that behind it, I think, is something that Kevin Shaw is a noted colorist and teacher at fxphd.com and with Warren Eagles and their CSI Colorist Society International and all their live training and online training. And in one of his HDR training pieces, Kevin noted that some SDR, standard dynamic range or Rec 709 media is log encoded, like this clip here, this MX clip off of a Sony camera. Some log encoded media is intended to be SDR Rec 709 on a standard timeline. All HDR media is log encoded. When I remembered that phrase, I went, oh, this is what Premiere is doing. It's looking at most log media and treating it as if it's HLG, which stands for hybrid log gamma. It's one of the two forms of HDR media that Premiere works with. No matter what else is going on, if you're getting the blown out look on a clip in Premiere, especially if it's a log clip, you need to go and set the override to Rec 709. And I've had people say, but my clip is 709. Yeah. Fine, whatever. Just go set the override to Rec 709 and well, that fixed it. Why? Well, because it's the way it's interpreting it now. They completely rebuilt the color system for Premiere in the 2022 system. They were changes that needed to happen. They had to make the change. And they had to go to one where the user had more control because we really had very little control. The problem is I don't think they have been as transparent as I would prefer. Up here in the upper right corner of my screen, Essential Graphics. If you are doing anything graphics item, you have the graphics panel here. If we go to edit, if I was going to type a text in here, now I have this, my text appears up in here. I can come down and I can control in the Essential Graphics panel over here to the right, I can control the font, the sizing of the whole thing, appearance, stroke, all that kind of stuff. This is Essential Graphics. Okay. Essential Sound, I can grab, hit the clip, and I can assign a dialogue, music, or whatnot. And once I've done that, say I put this as ambience, and then I get a bunch of options, and I can come in and start changing things. I've said that they need to give us an essential color management panel, because right now, for clip color management, that's, again, right-click, modify, interpret footage.
Okay.
But to set the timeline or the working color space, that you have to have your timeline highlighted here, selected in blue, and go to sequence settings. And then right here, you set the working color space. You have the three choices of 709, HLG, or PQ. Now that sets the timeline down here, your working space for the clips and what the monitor is expecting to see. But of
Yeah.
course, you also have the scopes here. The scopes, you have to come over to the scopes themselves. And when you look around, you go, well, gee, I don't see anything here to select this to go to HDR in the scopes. Is there anything there? You have to go to color space, and then you have the options for 601, which is an old and rarely used one. Rec 2020, I don't know why they include that. That is so wide as to be absurd. And 2100 and HLG and PQ. And so you have to set those. They do have the automatic option here, which supposedly matches what the scopes are doing with what the sequence is set to.
Okay.
But in my experience, that normally works most of the time. But occasionally, if you go to an HDR sequence, say, and then you come back to an SDR sequence, the scopes may stay in SDR, even though you've changed the sequence that you're on. So right here in the bottom left of the scopes panel, my scopes over here in the upper right corner, in the bottom left where it says Rec 709, that is something that you need to keep an eye on if you're using your scopes on automatic. But so we have three different places. We have a right-click context menu for the clips. We have the sequence menu for the timeline and program monitor, and we have the scopes right-click context menu for your scopes color management panels. And so I've put in a request, and the last I've heard from the little birdies whispering in my ear is that it is being seriously considered at this time. Being seriously considered at this time doesn't mean it's necessarily going to make it in at any one point. So,
So what your proposition would be the color space panel or the essential color panel would manage all of these three areas in one area, right? Which makes
it,
so much more sense.
yes, and especially being as they have said, they're going to have more controls. There will be more settings for default behaviors. There will be more settings for various other things that will come in. For anybody that has familiarity with even a little bit After Effects, you have some more controls in After Effects than we've had in Premiere. But if you go to something like Resolve, you've got a ton of controls. We're going to be getting some more of that in Premiere. They haven't said what we're going to be getting, but we will be getting some more of those. You really need a place at any one time in order to check this. You need one place, like going to the essential graphics, where you can click on the graphics, and I can come up here, click on that, and I can see all of my text properties for that in one place. And the same thing with the essential sound. We need that. Yes, essential color. Now, the other thing is, if you notice up here in the upper left corner, I'll cut over to my screen, you've got the import and then the edit, which is the main page, working page I'm on now, and then export. And export takes you over to this screen, which is very different. It used to, we would just get a dialogue that was about the width of the video screen over here to the right with a lot of stuff, and you could just scroll down and get everything. Well, they've got this new screen where you set what you want over here to the far left, like a media file, a YouTube file. And then, of course, you set a file name and a location. If you click on the blue line here, then you get a screen where you can set your location for the file, and then a preset. People are looking at this and going, so where's all my options? Well, you have to click the twirl down here to get video, but then they're looking at it and going, but I had a lot of other options before. Where are they? Oh, you click more down here again, and then you get more options. And so they're going, well, I could just scroll to these before. I didn't have to click and click and click. And this has driven a lot of people nuts. When you first go over to the export page here, you get, and you look at this preset list, it's not like this. They give you their standard preset list, which is 95 things long, and none of them I would ever use. And so you go to the preset list and you're scrolling forever and you can't find anything to use, and you finally have to start messing with settings. So what I finally realized that in order to make this at all usable, you click on the little three dots right here and you go more presets. and then you get this other box.
Oh my God, I've
And
seen this. Oh,
yeah,
Lord.
and
And
so
then
you
you
go
go
in here,
favorite it. That sucks.
all presets, and then you just basically unstar everything here. The only things that are starred here now are the ones that I will actually use. And basically, I unstarred everything that was starred, and then I went through, and there's a few of them that I was actually would use, and I starred those, and then I created a bunch of others, because you can do your custom presets, and I created these, including hot, test, and Neil, action, weird, let. I have only the ones that I want to have, and when you're making presets, it's handy to go into this more area here at the bottom. If you're going to do one where you want one high quality 1080 HD, but you want another one that is a much lower quality, make both of them. Do all of the settings down here in the bottom of this panel that you would want to do that are different, your bit rate target and everything like that. Make
Yep.
very specific ones, even if they're fairly close. If you're going to at times change some of these things that are down into the more category.
And Neil, what is this mastering display color volume?
Mastering display color volume is one of those things for if you're working with a Rec 7 or a 2100 HLG or PQ output, and it's especially I think comes up if you're working with PQ. I don't think it does with HLG, but if you're working with PQ, then you have to set your color primaries and your luminance and your everything for the for your HDR settings for that PQ file.
Say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.